Census 2021 on the 21st on the 21st of March this month, and telling us more about this particular Census 2021. Today on our panel, we've got Sanjay Jagatia. Mr. Sanjay, welcome to the session today. He is the Community Advisor for the Office for National Statistics, specifically for the Indian community in the UK. Just quickly, Rashmi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
It's just that I got a message saying connecting to cloud server. I wasn't sure whether my connection went down. Okay, looks like it's all fine. So carrying on, Mr. Sanjay Jagatia, in his role, he's responsible for engaging with the Indian community regarding the Census 2021, which is why we have him here today. So thank you so much for joining us. And a quick introduction about him before I relinquish the floor to him. Sanjay has been actively involved in the community through leadership roles and has been instrumental in advancing the social, cultural, and business interests of the Indian community living in the UK since a very young age. His passion is to further voluntary, charitable, and community activities to help the disadvantaged communities of people in the UK and across the world, and to provide them with empowerment, equality, and fairness. He's often the first point of contact by various UK government departments and statutory authorities to advise them and consult them on issues, legislations, and policies affecting the Indian community in the UK. And over the last 20 years, his fundraising activities have raised a whopping £20 million for activities within the UK and India, which includes a gamut of various sectors: education, health, music, art, disability, children, elderly, environment, and animal welfare. That is quite a big portfolio. And Sanjay's influence and flair has seen him become a well-respected and admired citizen and an ambassador of the Indian community. So it's not surprising that in the new year, Sanjay Jagatia was made a Global Goodwill Ambassador and is also the recipient of the Global Citizen Award and the eminent NRI Award by the Indian government. Huge congratulations on these achievements, Sanjay. And once again, welcome to this episode. So over to you, Sanjay. Tell us about the Census 2021. Why do we need the census, and what is different for Indians this time around? Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Emma. And thank you, Rashmiji, for organizing this at short notice. I really appreciate that. Can everybody see my screen, the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, brilliant. Just going to go through the reason why the census happens, what the census is, why it's important for the Indian community to participate in this very, very important piece of work. Census happens every 10 years, and I think the people I've been speaking to, they can't remember, the census that was on 2011. So it's even more important to show you today exactly what the census is. As I said, it happens every 10 years, and everybody in the UK has to take part in the census. It's important to take part because it gives us the most detailed information about our society in the UK. So every single household is covered in this, and it's a snapshot of what happens on the 21st of March 2021, so that the UK government, the local authorities, public sector, charities have a snapshot of everybody that's actually living in the UK. Before publishing the stats that we have, the Office for National Statistics, we make sure that we don't include any personal information into the final data. So those of you who work in data, you'll know that the questionnaire will have so many different questions, in fact, over 30 questions. But when we actually then put that into the report and the data that's collected, all you'll have on there is that it'll be totally anonymous, and there won't be any names or any other characteristics that will identify you as an individual or you as a family on the final data. The information collected by the census remains anonymous for 100 years. So after 100 years, only then people can see, what the person was, where he lived or she lived, and this is protected by law. So you may see on the on the TV some of the ancestry programs where they go around looking for people who were sort of living many, many years ago. They use census data to try and find out who your parents were, your grandparents, and your family tree as well. So that's one of the things that the census does. The information collected is really important because it gives government and also local authorities, charities and the public sector decide how billions, and I really mean this, billions of pounds of public funding is spent. It gives us the information to help shape policy and legislation in Parliament. It allocates resources according to the community needs. We also plan and run services and monitor equality, which is a really key thing for us as the Indian community. The census information also decides how we can improve the lives of citizens and society in the UK. So, for example, planning and development, the census information is used to plan local plans to better reflect and identify the inequalities at a local level. So wherever you live in the UK, Harrow, Wembley, Coventry, Manchester, the data that we have, that we collect from the census, the local authorities use that to identify if there's any inequalities that our community may be facing. Public health and social care is a very, very important part. Census information is used to inform about service demand, so identifying pockets of health deprivation and support for future planning. I'll go on to this particular bit a bit later on in the slide, because public health has been a really important part of our lives over the last 12 months because of the COVID pandemic. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Also about housing and whether we need to have more housing where we live in our local areas, in our local cities and towns, and also to measure whether some of the houses that are being sold, are they affordable to everybody who has an income, and that's actually something that we look at very, very carefully about measuring housing affordability. Education as well, you know, in the areas that we live in our cities and towns, is there a need for more schools, for example, because there may be more children who are likely to be born and start to go to school in the next 10 years. So the census information also decides whether there's more schools needed. And in fact, if there was more faith schools needed, so you may have seen some Hindu schools and some Sikh schools and so forth. So this will also decide whether there's a need for faith schools. Transport, and for those of you who live in London, this is probably really sort of important to you. If there's a need for more car parking, for example, where you live, improvements in the tube services, if there's a need to actually improve that, and also to inform planning profiles if there's a need for extra bus services, if we use the bus services regularly. And then also the census information, as I mentioned earlier on, is also used so that to understand the ethnic buildup and the characteristics of what we are in the community life in the UK, and whether we are treated equally as well. Census takes place on the 21st of March 2021, so we're roughly around 2 weeks away from Census Day itself. And for the first time ever in this country, the census is a digital first. So Hemajid, to answer your question, that this is the first time that the entire census is happening online, and people can just go on to the website and fill out their census form. And for those who are not comfortable doing it online, you can also request a paper copy, and you can have a paper copy. And it looks very similar to like when you're renewing your passport, and it's about 30 pages, and you have to physically write down the details. So I would really encourage those of you who can do this online to try and do the census online. We at the Office for National Statistics are focused on engaging with everybody, including underrepresented and hard to reach groups, by providing them the guidance and support in many languages and formats that we have as well. So just to say that the Indian community in the UK, the government says that we are underrepresented and we are a hard to reach community. So I'm really grateful for you to give me the opportunity of doing this. So this is exactly what we want to show everybody, the opportunity of filling out the census form. As you can see there on the right-hand side, pictures of, you can fill the census form on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, laptops, whatever you may be, you will be able to do the census. And the good thing about the census online is that you can start it, you can pause it and then save it and come back another day and fill out the remainder of the form if you so want to. And also it just takes you roughly around 10 minutes to fill out the entire census form, because it's very much of a tick box exercise. There's not very much you have to write online, unless you do it obviously on paper copy, where there is a lot to write, especially if there's more than 1, 2, 3, 4 people in your household, because all of their details details would need to actually go onto the form as well. We understand that it's not going to be easy for everybody to complete the census form online, and that's why we've got support centres all across the UK where people can get advice from the support centres. And at the moment, this is COVID restriction permitting. So we're hoping that the lockdown will be lifted soon. If so, you can walk into these support centres. And there are 3 in every city and town in the whole of the UK. So these support centres are currently operating virtually like we are doing now. So they'll be able to speak to you on Zoom and on the phone to be able to help you fill out your paper questionnaire or your online questionnaire as well. For those of you who don't have access to any of the internet, there'll be computers and laptops there that you can actually go on, almost like a cyber cafe, and be able to use the facilities that we have there. So, you know, there's so much help available in the support centre. We also have a dedicated phone line whereby this is manned by hundreds of our workers and our staff and our employees. And you can phone this 0800 number up, and the other side, somebody will speak to you in either Gujarati, Hindi, Punjabi, Telugu, Maharashtrian, whatever language, Urdu. You know, you'll be able to get that help on the phone lines to be able to help you fill out the census form. Collecting inaccurate and incomplete data will mean that the government and the local authorities simply cannot plan for the community needs. And this includes whereby we may feel that we're a very large community, the Indian community is very large, but unless we actually prove this by the census, we are going to be a forgotten community, you know, even after 10 more years. We've seen what's happened over the last 10 years. We've seen what's happened 10 years before that. And if we really be critical about ourselves, you know, we've really not received any kind of resources or funding or anything that would better the Indian community. So we want to put this right. You know, this time the census is that opportunity for us to do that. The census form has main sections on it, 4 main sections, you know, introduction and declaration, how to fill in the form and that. Then there's details about your accommodation and your house that you live at, the type of property, if you own the property, if it's rented. There's also a 3rd section, which is individual questions for each of us and each member of your household. So even a baby born on the 21st of March, 2021, who'll be 1 day old, will need to have that information on the census form. And that includes things like personal details, where you were born, the country of your birth, if you have any qualifications, your employment, what your general health is like. So if you suffer from heart conditions or diabetes or cancer, it's really important to write this down there. And the reason being is that it gives us an opportunity in government, an opportunity of being able to make sure that we've got that resources in place for people who are suffering from this. Also about your religion, your ethnic group, and how you travel to work and all the rest of it as well. And then the final detail is that on the 21st of March, if you have any visitors coming to your house and stopping overnight with you, you have to also include their data on your form. At this moment in time, I don't think anybody should be visiting anybody else and stopping overnight on the 21st of March because of COVID restrictions that really not supposed to do this. So on a normal circumstance, anybody who's on your house, at your house, stopping over, even if it's a friend or a neighbor or anybody, you would need to actually put them down on the census form. Because don't forget, what we're trying to do is to build a picture, a snapshot of just that one day. We can't do this every day, so we have to choose one day, which is going to be our day-to-day, and the 21st of March is that day. Just want to show you here about response rates in 2011, where one of the questions asked, what religion are you? So there's just a couple of examples, few examples there, that in 2011, 93% of Christians took part in the census, 94% of the Muslim community took part, 87% of the Hindu community, 74% from the Sikh community, and 73% are from the Buddhist community. And then all the other ethnic groups would have been even lower than what we see there. So you can see there that there's a low uptake of actually taking part in the census, considering that the census is actually mandatory and every single household has to take part. If you refuse to take part, there are fines of up to £1,000 that you could be liable for. And on top of that, the fine will also, you would also have a likelihood of a criminal record. So if you want to go to work or you want to find a new job, you can see just by not filling out a census form, you could have a criminal record, which will, come up on your DBS and all sorts of things there. So you can see that this is just an example of how many people from religions took part in 2011. This one is more important to us as a community. You can see there that in the last census in 2011, it stated that 1.4 million Indians actually lived in the UK. Now, this is absolutely ridiculous because we know that the Indian community in the UK is probably 2.5 million plus in the UK. But how on earth is the government or local authorities going to know that there are British Indians living in this country unless we fill out the form and clearly identify, that A, we are British because we live here, but we're also proud Indians as well. And I think that me and Hemaji were having this conversation yesterday that perhaps the reason why so less people filled in the form and identified themselves as an Indian, is it a fear factor? Is it because they're scared to actually identify themselves as an Indian? But, we are Indians, and, and the same would go for the Muslim community. The same would go for the Zoroastrian community. Whichever your identity is, you really should put this down on this census form so that we can collate that information. As you can see, the 2011 census only captured 1,412,000 who identified themselves as Indian, but we estimate that there are over 2.5 million Indians living in this country. One of the other questions that you have there, so it says in here, how would you describe your national identity? Now, the key thing to see here is that it's saying to you, how would you describe your national identity? They're not saying to you that we're going to say you're an Indian or you're a Pakistani or you're a Christian or whatever faith you are or whatever ethnic. They're asking you to identify. So this is how that question will look on your census form. So if I give you an example of what I would do.
For census form up to money.
Sorry, can I just request all participants to go on mute, please?
Huh?
Can I request everyone to go on mute, please? We can hear some background noise.
Let me just check there. Okay.
Yeah, is it possible, Rashmi, to mute everyone?
Yeah, I just did that.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. So one of the key questions, again, is about what you describe as your national identity. So this is how the form will look when you actually go online or if you have it on a paper copy. So if it was me, and I'm going to talk about if it was to give you an example, I would first of all say, when it says select all that apply, I would tick British because I'm proud to be British. I've lived here for 45, 50 years. So I'm proud to be British. I would then go to the section at the bottom which says other, and I would tick that as well. So I would tick British, other, and then it would take me to the screen that you see on the right-hand side that you selected other. How would you describe yourself? So where it says my national identity, this is where I would put down Indian. So when census and the government gets this form from me, they will see that I'm a British Indian. And that's how I will be calculated, how I can get my voice counted as well. So this is one question that we have about describing your national identity. And I think this is one of the questions that people failed to understand last time, because I think a lot of people felt that they were asking us, what's your nationality and what's the color of your passport? And, we obviously thought we were British citizens, so we would have just ticked the British box and that was it. So again, really encouraging you that, if you do want to be identified as an Indian, to tick the British, other, and then write in, or when you type in, if you type in IND, the drop box automatically comes up as Indian. So that's one of the questions that we have on there.
Yes,
the other question,
sorry to interrupt you there, Sanjay, but I think this is quite a key aspect, isn't it? Just to reiterate that we have to specify Indian there, not just leave it at British, and this is in the other column.
Absolutely. So, so if people want to identify themselves as a British Indian, so yeah, tick the British box, tick the other, and then where it says the national identity, type in Indian. And that's really important to capture that information. Otherwise, you saw that we had 1.4 million Indians who identify themselves as being a British Indian that last time, and we don't want that to happen. The other question that says that what is your ethnic group? So this is quite straightforward. If you see the left-hand side, it's got some selections. Are you white, mixed race, Asian or British, Black or Caribbean? So for us, when it says Asian or Asian British, This includes those who are Indian, Pakistani, Bangladesh, Chinese, and any other background. So I would tick that box where it says Asian and British, and automatically it will come up on the right-hand side where you then identify that your ethnicity is Indian. So the first box is you tick the Asian and Asian British, and then it will automatically take you to the second box where you've got a selection of whether you're Pakistani, Bangladesh, Chinese, or Indian. So again, I would tick the Indian box there.
Sanjay, quick question then.
Yes.
So the natural question that arises out of this is, why would we want to write Indian in the other box if we're already specifying this in the next on the ethnic group section?
Yeah, so the first question where it says your ethnic identity, so what's your identity? Here, what we are trying to capture is that people who come from India, for example, people who come from Africa like myself, from Uganda, you know, our roots go back to India, whether we came from Africa or not. Our roots, because our mothers and fathers, those like yourself, Emma, who came directly from India as well, you're never going to forget your roots. So this is also to capture that, you know, our roots are India. And this is a question which is very sort of almost like a voluntary question, so that that identity is always going to be there, that we don't forget what our roots were. And I'll tell you the reason why this happens is that, you know, you see a lot of things happening about India at the moment, you know, the anti-India sentiments, the anti-government of India sentiments, and all sorts of things. And a lot of things are raised in British Parliament. And we as Indians sometimes are feeling really helpless. We don't know how to actually counteract what's happening by those who, you know, and this will help us to be able to identify that, yes, there are many, many Indians here, and we do actually get hurt by the sentiments and the fake news, perhaps, and the false news that may be going around. So that's the difference between these two questions, that this is giving you an opportunity of ensuring that your roots are not forgotten as well, and you can put down that my roots come from India. I've had a lot of people who say, well, I come from Africa, so, you know, would I be classed as an African Indian, for example? The fact of the matter is that you need to look back at where your roots came from before you went to Africa. Your parents and your grandparents, they originated from India, even before partition as well. So that's what the key thing about capturing this particular question. But don't confuse this with your passport. That's the main thing. The question I mentioned to you about Asian and British, because you've seen that when you go for job interviews, a lot of the time you have these questions that ask you to describe what you are. And we come under what's called the bracket of Asian and BAME or BME. And again, I'll talk about that a bit later on as well, that, you know, that's why we have this. We don't have a choice. At the moment, the option we have is to call ourselves Asian and tick the Indian box. But I will go on to what that's going to have implications later on. Also, there's a question which is voluntary, and I'm not really too sure why people would want to think that religion is a voluntary question that they want to answer or not. But it is, it always has been. So here the question is, you know, this is a voluntary question where you can actually say you have no religion or you believe in no religion. You're a Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, and any other religion. So if it was me, and I've just showed you there that I would be I'm a Hindu, so I would be ticking the Hindu tick box there. And I guess I'll show you later on why that's important as well. But for you, whichever religion you believe in, you know, that's the religion that you need to tick in. If you don't want to declare that, then you can just basically say no religion on there as well. And it is a voluntary question, so you don't have to fill this question in at all if you didn't want to. The other thing that's one of the other questions that we have is, what is your main language? What is the language that you speak? So you've got two options here. On the left-hand side, it says, is your main language English, or is it any other language, including sign language as well? So my main language is not in English, so I would tick the other, and it will take me onto the right-hand side of the screen there where you can see it gives you an option to put down what your main language is. So in my case, my main language is Gujarati. So I would put down Gujarati. Even though I speak English, I also consider my mother tongue language, my Matru Bhasha, as I've always been told that it is Gujarati, it will always remain Gujarati. But you can choose, you know, whether it's Gujarati, Hindi, Telugu, Punjabi, Urdu, whatever you feel is your main language, you know, that's what you need to put there. And I'll just quickly tell you why this is. So if you think about it, that, you know, my mum and dad, my mother in particular, she doesn't know how to speak English. She doesn't know how to read English. So when you get letters from the hospitals, when you get letters from public sector, we would want it to be translated into the various languages. And in my case, I would like to have my mum to receive a letter that's going to be translated in Gujarati so she understands everything that's going on in UK society. And the same would apply to Telugu, Punjabi, Urdu, whatever. So this is why this question is really important, so that it gives public agencies an opportunity to say, okay, should we be translating the information that we're sending out? And a classic example of this is the census. Had we had this information before, who knows, we could have had a census form in Gujarati or Marathi or Punjabi, whatever language we wanted it to, but the lack of data didn't allow us to actually do that. So that's why the language question comes into it. And I said to you that I'll give you an example of why it's important. These are just some of the examples of what other faiths and communities did. The Muslim Council of Britain, they used the census data 20 years ago in 2001. And they used the data, they identified that there was a large Muslim community in the UK. And as a result of that, they lobbied, campaigned, and they were able to get a secure supply of Muslim healthcare chaplains in hospitals. And also they had provisions for extra space in funerals. So for example, extra land to be able to bury and all the rest of it. That's really key there, that, you know, if you go into every hospital in the UK, you will have the opportunity of having a friendly Muslim person who can speak their language and who's there for them at end of life, or even while they're there on a short stay, for whatever reason they got into a hospital about. The Jewish community, they used the data in 2011 to plan and to also lobby, because they realized, just like we should be realizing, that there's an aging population in the UK. So people are living longer in the UK. And as a result of that, somewhere along the line, they're going to start to have ill health, mobility issues, and all that kind of thing. And as a result of that, they use the census data to be able to say, we want to estimate our future care needs, for the elderly population, and also crematoria facilities as well. So a key example there of why it's important for, to use our information. The Jain community, and again, this is a really great example, and I use this example all the time. For those of us who go from UK to India and you're vegetarian, you'll say to the airlines that I want to have a vegetarian meal, and they'll give you a Jain meal. So the Jain community have used the census data to ensure that airlines provide a Jain meal for those who are vegetarian. They've also got Jain chaplains. They want to make sure that Jainism is taught in schools in a correct way. So they've been able to influence that as well, simply by saying that they are Jains on the census form. And it showed that there was a large amount of them in the UK. I've put on the bottom the Ekta Unity. I'm a bit biased about this, by the way, Hema, but this is my charity that I run in Coventry. And I just wanted to give you an example that this charity is very much similar to Inspiring Indian Women. My team looks after 480 Asian women on a day-to-day basis. We run for 5 days a week. We have a center. And we do mental health activities, luncheon club, you name it. Everything that you do, we do at this center. And we have raised, and we're able to actually go to the local authorities, ask for funding, and we've been given funding. So we've got paid workers, support workers, the CEO even gets paid. Those kind of things are happening because we were able to use the census data to prove to the local authority, grant-making authorities, and central government that we do these services for the Asian elderly women in our community. So that's wanted to just show you how you can use the census data effectively. Also, there's lots of other benefits. If you in future wanted to have a community hall, or any of the charitable projects that you get, there's opportunities there for you to be able to acquire funding, to say, I'm doing this, and as a result of this, I need the funding to be able to sustain that project. For those who want to build temples, getting planning permissions, you need to be able to go to the local authority and say, I want to build a temple or a mosque here. The first thing they're going to ask you is how many people are going to use it. So you need to be able to identify that there is a large Indian community or a Sikh community in that area for you to be able to get planning permission or to build a place of worship. Resources from healthcare, and I mentioned this earlier on, that why this is important. We as an Indian community suffer disproportionately when it comes to things like diabetes, cancer, heart problems. those type of things, and the need for us to be able to have resources so that we can better our lives and our diets and everything else that goes along with living with these illnesses and viruses and diseases. And hospitals and doctors and the Department for Health can't do that unless we show them that there is a specific Hindu community, there's a specific Indian community, and we need to have these resources. So again, really sort of great examples there of why data is used. Yoga. Everybody I see on Facebook Live or YouTube over the last sort of 12 months have been doing online yoga classes and all the rest of it. And Hemaji and Rashmiji, you guys do this type of thing, but you do it because you feel you need to give that service to the women that you serve. But have you ever thought that, hang on, by us doing this Zoom call, I've got 30 ladies on the call, and they've actually got away from the emotional trauma they're getting, mental health issues, isolation, loneliness, and you're doing yoga sessions. So the government and the local authorities should give you money to do this, even though you're doing it online. But you have to prove it to them. And this is why, again, a classic example, luncheon clothes. I know that people have been giving out food parcels at the moment, and they've been saying we're going to go and give it to the NHS, we want to give it to charities. But there's funding available for you to do that as well. It doesn't have to come from your own pockets. And, we have to go to other people and asking them for donations to do a service that we are doing on behalf of the government, because the government, the local authorities can't do this. We are doing it. So in return, we should be able to get the benefits from it. I looked at your website earlier on and I saw this, and I was astonished that you guys, Inspiring Indian Women, are doing Zoom calls 2 or 3 times a week, getting different audiences. And again, you're doing it because it's your love of doing this. But let's change this. You should be able to get funding to do what you already do virtually, let alone what you will be doing when lockdown is over and physically doing these activities. But again, you can see there that why you need to have the census data to be able to get this sort of funding. Again, some of the activities.
Yeah, just to add to that, Sanjay, Rashmi has been very instrumental in holding all these sessions. And during lockdown, she's actually been doing these every day of the week on weekdays, barring weekends. So I think you've got quite a few sessions, maybe in hundreds already, Rashmi, in your kitty. Yeah. Did you know that you can actually get a paycheck? Let's get that census. We should get paid now.
Actually, we struggle for the fund, because we don't have time to fill up these forms and all that, people have told me, but yeah.
And the thing is, Rashmi, I totally agree with you. But the fact is, look at this page itself. Look at the 4 or 5 different activities. And you're talking of hundreds. You've done so many different activities. And sometimes when you're applying for grants, you get really confused by the long pages of paper that you have to do. But the fact is, if you're able to prove to your local authority, whether you lived in Harrow or Wembley or Ealing or wherever it may be, just the census information should be enough for the local authority to say, okay, we have got funding for communities. We're going to allocate Inspiring Indian Women £10,000 to do what they're doing at the moment. It saves you having to go through filling out these forms and then having a rejection. Sometimes, you could fill out 10, 15 grants and probably get none of them in return. But we're not talking of just those grants, but we're talking about what the local authorities are already getting money for, which we just want them to actually say, we are doing your job for you, because that's what you're doing. You're doing their job for them. They can't reach the demographics that you guys are reaching.
True, Sanjay, but I think with the...
carry on, Hema.
I was going to say, but I think what we are going to struggle with IIW is that IIW is international, whereas local authorities would probably only work within the purview of their jurisdiction as such. So we aren't really local, are we, Rashmi? If you had
we are local. We are.
The thing is, the thing is, you can have an international arm and you can have an international reach, but the fact is, all the government and the local authority will want to know is, Rashmi, you say, well, I've got 200 women in my area. They're not worried about whether you have 30,000 all over the world. All they're interested in is about that 30, 40, 50 that you have in your own local area. So, for example, and this gives you an example, our charity, we do international work in India as well. And you saw from my introduction that, we do a lot of work in India. But when we apply for grants and we ask the local authority, we just talk about what we have in Coventry. I live in Coventry, and I say to them that I have 30 Indian women who come to my knitting class. They have a knitting class, on a Thursday afternoon. It's a bit of a, chai chat type of thing, and they do knitting, and but that's getting people out of isolation. It's getting them out of loneliness. And I tell you what, the biggest thing is actually empowering women. It doesn't matter what age a woman is. By doing what we do, we're empowering them by doing these activities. So that's just some of the examples. And again, coming to the end of the slides now, there's nothing we can do unless we actually raise our voice. And we need your support to be able to come together as an Indian community. If you feel that, okay, Sanjay, I'm 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, I'm listening to you now, what benefit is it going to be to me? I might not be here in 10 years' time, which is fair enough. You could say that. But let's leave a legacy for those who are coming behind us. Our sons and daughters, our friends and family who may be much younger than us. Let's leave a legacy for them so they don't have to go through what Rashmiji and Hemaji and everybody's saying. We apply for so many grants, we don't get anything. Let's not leave them, our future generation, to have to do the same things that we've struggled to do, so that we can actually get what we're in. The whole thing about census is identifying what we're entitled to. If we don't raise our voice, we don't actually tick that box, we're not going to be entitled to nothing. And we want to be able to uphold our culture. You do so many cultural activities. If you don't do it, sooner or later, as time goes along in this country, our Indian culture is going to go. People are not going to carry on the dancing and the things that you guys do and other people do. That culture is just going to go. The Indianness in all of us may not be the same with our second, third generation of our children. I mean, I could talk for my own children. One is 27, one is 35. I asked them the question before I started the work on census. I said, what would be your identity? And they said, Dad, I'm British. I've been born in Britain. I've lived here. I've got a great job, and it's because of Britain. See, the mentality is there that they don't realize that the question is asking you that, yes, you are actually a British Indian because your roots go back to India. Identify yourself as a British Indian as opposed to a British, because you saw on that graph, the British line, it actually goes over the page because everybody said they were British. I mean, the Indian line was only 1.4 million. I mean, how ridiculous is that? So that's why it's really important to actually do this. So just a quick timeline. Everybody should receive the code going in the post. Some have received it already. Some will receive it up until the 12th, 13th, 14th of April. You do need to fill out the census form as soon as that happens. Now, the key thing happens is after the 22nd of March, if you haven't filled your census form in, you'll get one reminder letter. You'll get a second reminder letter, and then after the second reminder letter, you'll get a knock on the door and saying by one of the census officers saying, you haven't filled the census form in. Is there a reason why you haven't filled it in? And then they'll help you fill that form in on your doorstep if you so wish to, or encourage you to do that. If you still haven't done it, you'll get a third letter. You still haven't done it, you get what's called the red letter, which is your non-compliance letter. And unfortunately, this is a period from the 22nd of April that you could be liable to have a fine of £1,000. And I don't want anybody from the Indian community in the UK to actually end up paying £1,000 fine for not taking part in the census. If you've got £1,000 spare, instead of giving it to the government for not doing, the census, give it to inspiring Indian women. They won't have to go and look for any money from anywhere else. If they get 30,000, £1,000 from all of you guys, they'll be able to run our activities for the rest of the year. So if you've got that much money and don't want to actually, take part in the census, give it to those who really are doing the work out there. It's pointless being fined for £1,000 for a simple exercise like this. Believe me, last census, there were many, many people who got fined. I don't know why people, chose that route. This is on your right-hand side. You'll see there, this is a letter you'll get, and that 16-digit number is really key. This is unique to every single household in the UK. So no two people will get the same code. You need that code to be able to go onto the census website. And when you say, as soon as you go into the census website, you'll come up with Start Census. You click that, and you'll be able to put in your access code, and you're away. You'll start to get all your census questions coming, and then the tick box exercise comes. What best describes your identity and all the rest of it, and your name and all the rest of it. Also, on the online, the good thing about it is that after every question on the right-hand side, you have a help box. So if you wanted to understand that question in more detail, you can click it, and it will give you in Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi, Telugu, whatever language you want, there's a helpline there after every question that you'll be able to get it in the language that you're comfortable with. So not only have you got the language phone lines, you've also got it online as well, where the help box will give you the question in language so you understand it better. And again, the helpline number is 0800 587 2021. And if you want any help whatsoever, that helpline will do it in Gujarati or any language that you want. I've just put a Gujarati example here, but it can be any language that you'll get the helpline facility. Again, just a reminder, please don't get to this stage where you get reminder letters and then the compliance that comes into it. So, you know, what to do if you're a British Indian. This is just a snapshot of, you know, make sure you put your language, whichever language it is, Gujarati, Hindi, whatever. How would you describe your national identity? And again, I'll reiterate this question. It's saying, how would you describe? So this is your chance. This is your chance to say, yes, I'm a British Indian. I'm proud to be Indian. Your chance there, and your religion, you know, whether it's Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, whatever, Sikhism, whatever it is that you want to do. So that's just a snapshot of what I believe are the 4 major questions that if we fill them incorrectly, then all the things I've told you about that we are doing, we'll be able to do that a lot better than we are doing at the moment, and lobby and campaign, you know, to be able to get what's right for us as being Indians, British Indians in this country. This is the first presentation I've done. Like I said, I've done about 180 of them. This is the first one I've done, which I'm talking to an organization which is called Inspiring Indian Women. And my presentation has been all the more worthy of doing it today, because I'm talking about the Indian identity, and I'm having an organization that actually got the title Indian in their title. So, you know, thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you so much, Sanjay. That has really been very useful. I will admit that as a millennial migrant, I didn't have a lot of background and information about Indians in Britain who moved here possibly in the 1960s and 1970s. And to be honest, I was a bit surprised by the entire focused drive on getting Indians to do the census, because in my, naivete, I thought the census is a liability on all of us as citizens. It's a responsibility, a legal responsibility for all of us to do the census. So I was quite surprised to see, why is there such a focused drive? Are people not doing it? Do they not realize that it is maybe not criminal, but yeah, they can definitely be prosecuted for not doing the census. So I think you're
100% right. You know, Hema, I have colleagues who I look after the Indian community. My job is to engage with the Indian communities. I have colleagues who are from the Somalian community, the Muslim community, the Christian community, the Jewish community. And when we have our meetings, and I'm telling them that I had a Zoom call yesterday and I was telling people to tick the Indian box, you know, to identify themselves, they laugh at me. And I say to them, why are you laughing at me for? They say, you know what, if you go and talk to any Muslim, you would never need to tell them to tick the box that says Muslim. Everybody in their community would tick to say, I'm a proud Muslim. If you go to a Jewish community, you'll never need to say to them, please, you know, I'm almost like begging you today that please tick the Indian box. These communities never, ever have to do that. They would automatically have it in their mind, I'm an Indian, I'm going to tick Indian. I'm a Muslim, I'm going to tick it. You know, why is it that our community, you know, we've had to do these sessions just to really encourage people to actually tick the box that really identifies themselves?
Yes, and I think you've highlighted that, because I'm pretty sure that 10 years ago when I filled this form, I must have not put in Indian in the other column, thinking that the Indian ethnicity was enough for the government to notice that there are quite a few Indians and get me on the statistics there.
I probably,
so thank you for highlighting that.
I'm hiding my face and say to you that I actually ticked the British box last time as well. And here's me 10 years later trying to encourage everybody to do something that I did wrong, you know, 10 years ago. So right. I don't mind admitting that.
So leading on to that, then I want to know, are there any government initiatives now that are probably on their agenda based on the statistics, the Indian statistics that they're going to receive on the census? Is there something important and on priority at the moment? Do you know of any initiatives?
So basically, what happens is that every local authority will get their funding April, like the government, the chancellor will make sure that everybody's got a budget for the entire year. And what tends to happen then is that the local authorities then spend time to ensure that they allocate those resources where they think that the communities are and the areas that those communities do. So, as far as specific initiatives, we wouldn't know that. But what I will say to you is that every single thing that you do in your organization, I've seen it. I've been following Rashmiji I've known her for many years now, and I know the activities that you do. And I've always sat back and thought to myself, these guys are doing this, and you're doing it from your own money. Sometimes you have to go out and ask people for money to be able to sponsor events. Let's cut this out. This is something that, let's raise our voice, be proud. She's a fearless person. She'll always say she's an Indian. She doesn't hide the fact that she's an Indian. Why are we scared to say that? Let's prove to the authorities that we have a large community here, and whatever initiatives that they have, Emma, we want to be part of those initiatives. We want to have our share of that. We want to have our share of that.
So what do we stand to lose by not marking as Indians and being classed in the generic category of Asians then?
The thing is,
these benefits?
Well, let me tell you, and again, I'm going to be very ruthless and I'm going to be very open with what I say. If you remember 2-3 years ago, there was a horrible incident that happened in Rotherham where there was a big gang rape. 1,000 white women had been raped by a particular community. Any bad news that you see on TV, whether it's related to terrorism or extremism, have you noticed that the BBC and the media and everybody categorizes us all as Asians? Now, the thing is, we Indians are very law-abiding people. I hate it when I see something bad on the newspaper or the television and they say the Asian community have done this. Well, hang on a minute. It wasn't us Indians who have done this. So the idea of being able to get the numbers of Indians in this UK up, we can then start to lobby BBC and Rashmiji's got a smile on her face because she's been doing exactly this to try and stop BBC from calling us Asians, calling us BMEs. Well, what better proof can we have than to show them that there are 3-4 million Indians in this country, and we are law-abiding. So don't put us into this BME or Asian category. Call us as we are. We are British Indians, and if we do anything bad, then say a British Indian has done this bad. But I can guarantee you there'll hardly be any of that.
Yeah, no, you make a very valid point. So I hope people will realize how important it is to actually put that Indian in the other column. I am going to try and stress this to as many people as I can. Now, there's another point I wanted to raise, Sanjay, and this is, since you've already shown us what is covered in the questionnaire, in the census questionnaire, one of the key things that we are that I feel we are missing out is identifying maybe the whole demographics of the Indians. You mentioned that we're largely law-abiding, which is true. And from what I have seen, I'm a millennial migrant. And what I mean by millennial migrant is that we moved here from India after 2000. And I know many people who have moved to UK, and they're largely high-skilled people, be it the medical profession. We've got doctors, we've got, in the education sector, we've got professors, research scientists, PhD students. We've got people like me who are in the IT sector, and we have very close ties with India. And when I mean by close ties, we still have family, we still have property in India, we visit them annually. So we have, we haven't cut our ties with India. Whereas what I find that most of the programs, be it radio shows, talk shows, or people who are referred to as Indians by the UK people are generally people who'd migrated maybe in the 1970s and 1960s, 1970s. And the second generation Brit Asian is not much older or younger than the millennial migrants now who are highly skilled. And I feel this entire demographics completely falls through the gaps. I feel we don't get represented very well. So is that ever going to change? Because this census doesn't capture any of that. When did you move, or when did you get your citizenship, and any of that? How do you think that the government's likely to address this? And as a community advisor, I want to put this question out to you.
Yeah, so one of the questions that it does say on the census form is that which is your country of birth? So basically, it does ask you. So if you say that you were from India and you've come here as a, after 2000, a young British Indian, as far as the diaspora is concerned in this country, that's the only way we can capture this data to say that, okay, we've got a recently moved community showing the dates. That's actually when you moved to this country. So that is a question that's on there. So you'll be able to identify that. And don't forget that the way that the data works, the Office for National Statistics, they do the data for almost everything in the UK. You must have seen that even the daily COVID-19 reports that you get on the news, it says the data has been provided by the Office for National Statistics, how many people have died today, how many have caught the coronavirus. So that, we're a very big agency that works with all government departments. And we've now come to a stage that this census is so important because of COVID-19 and the repercussions of that. Also Brexit as well. We came out of, Brexit in just at the beginning of the lockdown, and that's going to have a massive effect on people's jobs and other things that we're all fearing now, about what's going to happen with any trade deals with other countries and all the rest of it. So this is where the government and public sector, so where you work, for example, Hema, they'll be looking at the data that we have so that it can show, and every organization has a diversity policy. So it's almost like a way of knowing that if they're going to employ somebody, in an IT specialist or a high-flying job, that the diversity angle of it, that they are recruiting those people, from the Indian community, for example, if we're able to show that we're a large community. So there are lots of knock-on effects of this. Don't forget the data for the census lasts for 10 years. So whatever you do on the 21st of March is going to seal your fate and my fate for the next 10 years. And that's the only data that everybody in the whole of UK will have. So, just to answer your question, that there are other departments within government and statutory authorities that look at this data to prepare what they're going to do with jobs and all sorts of different types of things. So I think that's where they will capture where the younger, when I say younger, I mean the new British Indians who have come into this country. But at the same time, the onus is also on us. If we don't raise the fact that we are new millennials who have come into this country, because you've almost fall into the same category as what my two sons were saying, that, it's totally, we're ignored. We're nothing like what you were when you came from India or Africa. So it is our role as communities and organizations to actually raise this and start doing activities that recognize what you're saying as a millennia, and get funding to do that as well, so that we can raise that profile.
Oh, very, very well put. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up the floor for maybe just a couple of questions if we have, because we've got just about 1 minute left for the session. But yeah, I'm sure we can. We've normally extended it to 5 minutes, 10 minutes past 7. So Rashmi, if it's okay, I'm going to open the floor for some questions from others. I've exhausted my list of questions.
Of course. I can see one question here from Dr. Harsha Jani. She says, are Indian students living in the UK on education visa required to complete the census form?
Absolutely. So anybody that's living in the UK on the 21st of March 2021, their details have to be captured, definitely, if they're here for more than 3 months, obviously.
So what about me? I'm in Mumbai, and so my husband will send me the number, that code, which might have come by post, right? To my
yeah, so he doesn't have to send it to you. He could fill it in, and he can include your details and your children's details on the same form. So one person in the family can fill for everybody. It's just that you've got the option of requesting a separate form if you want to.
Okay.
And there's obvious reasons for that. Well, you may not get on with your husband, so you don't want him to know what you've actually done.
So one person can fill the entire family form, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I think more than that, it'll probably be that she maybe doesn't trust him to fill out the form efficiently, maybe accurately.
Well, I'm actually relieved, that, okay, one person can fill it up. Like, I was worried, like, how do I fill it up? Okay.
But please tell him to let you fill it out, so you can make sure that every person in your house ticks that British Indian box in case he forgets.
Okay. So Divya, you have to ask something?
Do we have any questions from the participants?
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
Anita.
Anita, go
I
on.
don't have any question, but definitely, Sanjay, it was a lovely session. And me, politically, I'm much interested in knowing a lot of political things. And this is kind of, not directly political, but yeah, indirectly, it's going to affect all of us. And really important session. And I'm from Coventry, just to your knowledge. Okay.
I thought I'm the only person who's an Indian that lives in Coventry. Nobody else, I don't see any Indians here. I'm really glad that you're from here.
And I'm from Coventry, and it was really nice to know about this. And we are also Tamilian. We are also propagating this, and we are also spreading this over because beyond Indian, we also wanted to identify ourselves as Tamilian, right? So because we are not recognized in India, so at least here we would like to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. So I'm not sure if you know about our community, since as your background says you are here for a long. So I'm not sure how far you're aware about the Tamil community, which is in down south, in India, down south, and our language is the oldest language in the world. Like my mother tongue is a mother language for all the languages. So those things are something which we feel bad because we don't get recognized in terms of education, in terms of adding our language as a main languages. And also, like, we are the highly taxpayers among the states who are paying highly taxpayers among the states in India, right? But we get least money in return. The reason is that in Hindi they say माँ तो उस बच्चे को ज्यादा देती है जो बीमार हो, है ना? तो what we say is that माँ उस बच्चे को भी ज्यादा खिलाए जो कमा के लाता है घर पे, right? So those kind of things are always over there. And these I'm really glad that in UK at least we have this freedom to talk about this and talk about census, talk about our ethnicity, and also making people aware about that how important this basic census is. Okay, such processes there in India as well, but it is always what government says is what you have to do, even though you have some census to do. Okay.
Well, this is exactly what I said to Rashmiji and Hemaji
Yeah.
as well, that the census is about choice. This is giving
Right.
you the choice of deciding what
Right.
you want to be identified, what you want to let others know about you. This is our choice. This is a separate thing to what happens in India. Hema was saying that there's a census that takes place in India. I remember from Uganda, there's a census in Uganda, but we don't think about it in the same way that we're probably thinking about it here. That the entire society in the UK runs off the census. There's nothing happens unless the data from the census then tells all the other departments and authorities and that schools, education, healthcare, everything depends on what's on the census. I just wish people knew the importance of this. I wish I knew the importance of this 10 years ago, because we wouldn't have struggled as whether it's a Tamil community, Indian community, Bengali community, we would not have struggled because we would have put things right. One of the key things I'm saying to everybody that I'm doing presentations, don't stop this engagement after the 21st. Organize another Zoom call in another month, 2 months, when you're back, because then you can then say, it's all good we've took part in the census, but the census data will come out in October, November, December time. What we're going to do with that data. You may say, okay, there's now 2.5 million Indians and Tamils, but it's useless unless we also start to strip that data down and start saying now, okay, we want to lobby for this now. We want this, we want that. So don't just take this as a filling exercise about census. Think about what we can do after the census to use the data. Unfortunately, the ONS won't employ people like me to come out and do that, but we can do that. We can do that as a community. We need to take that initiative of how are we going to use that data. And look at the examples I gave you. Muslim Council of Britain, the Jewish community, the they're 20 years ahead of us. They've already started to analyze the data for the next 10 years and making sure that they fill things in for the next 10 years. So it is up to us as well as a community to do this.
True. And I think that we all have to be united in this to first recognize ourselves as Indians. And then once the data is all out there statistically, then we can start lobbying for maybe a Maharashtrian community, a Tamilian community, or whatever. But yes, but we need to get that information out first and log that in. Sanjay, I'm really grateful that this has been such an interactive Q&A kind of session, because all the other information that we've seen about the census has just been one way. We've just been bombarded with information, but we've never had, at least I haven't had the opportunity to speak to people, speak to somebody like you and understand why is this drive happening? What are we missing out? What can we do? So this is really, as you said, it's empowering us and giving us the control and the choice.
Thank you to Rashmiji, who's been on to me about doing this for the last few days, and I'm so glad that you were able to organize this at short notice. So thank you so much.
No, I'm really grateful. Thank you for this. Thank you for that.
The lady with the iPhone, she wanted to ask some question. The name is not there; it's just written iPhone. You have some question? I thought you raised your hand. Hello.
Hi, is that you?
Carry on.
You're on mute. Do you have a question? Yeah, you have raised your hand. Yes. I think you need to unmute her, Rashmi.
Oh, really? Okay. No, again, 1 minute. I'm not able to, I'm pressing ask to unmute. Unmute yourself, please.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I just needed to ask that if we've got friends and family who just only come here, and we know that they are not here to come for 2-3 months, can we ask them to fill out those forms?
So are you saying that you've got relatives coming from outside of UK?
Relatives and friends, and who I know visit other family members besides coming to me. They are like Indian passport holders, or should I say from India or Africa and other parts of the world.
Yeah, so anybody who's lucky enough to get a flight to come to the UK and they're going to be here on the 21st, they would need to be included in your census data. But it's like I said to you, that it's very unlikely that anybody will be coming to your house on the 21st of March, because I think most of the UK is still in lockdown and restrictions, and you'll probably get another fine, let alone the £1,000 for not filling in the census, but you might get a further fine for allowing somebody to come to your house on that day. Yeah. So I think, the thing is, if you have got, the answer to that is, if anybody is at your house on that day, whether they come from Africa, India, whatever, they will need to be included on your census data form.
So, this is what it is. It's not actually coming to my residential. They've got property here who come in and out of the UK to travel.
Okay, and so if they've got property here, they would have received they will receive the census form as well, because it's per household. So they're liable to actually fill that form in as well. So if they're not here at the time of census day, there'll be these 1, 2, 3, 4 letters that will go to them after that. And if they still don't fill the census form, and I'm sure they'll get a knock on the door, and then people will say whether that property is empty, and that's the reason why nobody's filled it in. But if they are here, they have to fill that census form in, and it's to their advantage. I think what we've got, Emma, one of the things I was saying to Emma yesterday is that I don't know how much more perhaps we need to change the style of what we're saying, that the census is actually more beneficial to us for doing it, as opposed to the negative of whether we should do it or not do it. I think, that's what we really got to get across here.
Yeah, no, there shouldn't be any fear of the census.
To try and add them in rather than, exclude them, trying to add them in and tell them that, you check your mail and get it sorted out.
Absolutely. And, it's almost like, Rashmi, you're not being here, but that we don't want to lose her voice by saying I'm a British Indian. And a lot of people may do that because, a lot of people are still outside of UK at the moment because of the pandemic. Okay. I hope that we don't forget these people who are, all over the world and saying, well, no, they're British first. They need to be part of the census, and make sure their husbands and their children, make sure they put their information down on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, because or put it this way, their houses are locked up here, like just like how we probably, some of us have got locked up property in India.
Yes, 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 yes. But unfortunately, there's nothing more we can do about if they're not here on the 1st of March, and then there's a time element for them to be able to fill this form in. After that, you know, it's beyond what we can do in the sense that, you know, will they get fined, or, you know, they may have I mean, not everybody's going to get fined, because some people may have a genuine reason, as you've said, that they're not in this country to be able to fill this in, and I'm sure that will be taken into consideration. But I hate talking about these fines, because I don't want any Indian to get to that stage in this country.
You know, thank you so much for that question.
You know how
that
to
is
use
useful.
it better in the community.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we have to.
Thank you so much for that question. Yeah. Anyone else has got any question? You could either raise your hand or put something in the chat.
I've got a question here. There's somebody said, I called the census number as requested and for a paper application, but the office is running behind time due to computer problems. So yeah, and you can imagine that this is the only exercise that takes part in the whole of the UK where 50, 60 million people are being contacted and communicated. So obviously there's going to be times when things are busier, but they're trying so hard to make sure that, you know, that these questionnaires go out to people and the queries that people get. I just sometimes think that, you know, if there's 50, 60 million people that they're trying to work with here, how on earth would this work in India with 1.5 billion people if they were to do a census in the same way that we're doing here?
Well, we've got a lot of foot soldiers, as they call it in India. Yes. You've got volunteers from the government who visit every house and take down the information. I don't know if that is still happening, but it did happen when I was an Indian citizen, when I was living there. So, also, I think to add to that question, I believe you mentioned in the timeline that it's not just March 21st, but there are several reminder letters that goes on, and it's you've got time till April 22nd to fill out the census, isn't it?
Yeah,
before,
I mean, for obvious reasons,
the drastic step of being fined.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that opportunity of doing that.
Okay.
But the thing is, you know, I always say that, you know, I know that I haven't received my census letter yet, but my brothers have. And they received it in the morning. They came back from work, you know, they had their dinner. They sat down in front of their phone and they went onto the census with their key number. And I said to them that just tap in your key number. And after a couple of questions, if you want to just save it and come back to it the next day, do that. In fact, both of my brothers said they filled it in and within 10 minutes, it was just done. So once you started,
you want to finish it off.
You want to finish it. You know, it's there, and it's just, you just submit it. And once you've submitted it, you can't retrieve it back again. It's gone. Yeah. It is a lot easier than perhaps I've explained it. The census, when you go online, is a lot easier. It's just that I wanted to cover the four main questions because I think they get hidden, and I think that if we didn't harness on that, we may lose the voice and the vote that we're really trying to get with the numbers of people. And I'm I really am, and Rashmi knows this, I'm a real passionate Indian. I consider myself to be British, but I'm, you know, for me, you know, being called a British Indian is everything to me. Even though I was born in Africa, you know, I've never forgotten my roots back in India.
True. And for people like us who've moved from India and we still have close ties with India, I feel I've become more of an Indian since I've moved to Britain than I was when I was in India. So I am definitely a very proud Indian. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to make sure I get that in the census, and I will also urge every one of you who's attended this to spread that word to your friends, whoever you know, to local councils, for people who haven't come onto this session. Please do spread the word around, because that is really key to
and I think it's important that
the accurate representation.
And we shouldn't be scared of saying that we're Indians. You know, I don't know whether that's one of the barriers that we have. That is it, I don't know, why don't we say we're British Indians? You know, the benefits from this as far as funding is one thing, but in future, it could help foreign policy as well. And you know what I'm trying to say here, that, you know, this anti-Indian sentiments, you know, we're on the back foot all the time as being British Indians. We watch all this is happening. The BBC not making any programs for Indians. You see other nationalities programs happen on there. Where do you see something for Indians? This can change that. We can
or
use
even
the
misrepresented.
Misrepresented, yeah. I'll give you an example. In the school books, you know, the Hindu community, when you go and talk about religious education in schools, and it gives you the form with the pages where it talks about Hinduism, you know what 7-year-old children are taught about? That Hinduism is a caste-based, discriminative faith that just has all these caste systems, and there's this hierarchy and lower hierarchy and all the rest. And that's what we are teaching, you know, the children in this UK. Whereas if we were able to show our strength and say, no, this is a true reflection of what Hinduism is, or what, you know, Marathi is, or what Telugu is, or what, you know, what being a Tamil is, we can't do that. We don't want people to write our history books and about our teaching of what Hinduism and all the other faiths are. We have to do that. We have to show that with the numbers that we have, taught in the right way, not misrepresented. I'd hate to be called.
Probably get. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
My sons came to me after they were, you know, this is when he was 8, 9 years old. He says, Dad, what caste am I? I said, where did you hear? Because we've never had a caste system. I've never even told them. Until I'm 55 now. I didn't even know what caste I was really until I got married and, you know, all the rest of it. But why is it important? Why, you know, but when you have this on religious education books and we're talking about it in a young age, they came to me and said, what caste am I? And I didn't have an answer for them. I said, I haven't got a clue what caste you are. All I know that you're a British Indian. There's no other, you know, denomination of that.
True, and as Shashi Tharoor says, maybe we can, get students over here to learn about British colonization of India, which I don't think is in their history book. So, yeah, if we get the numbers correct. Sarika Handa has a question. Can you unmute yourself, Sarika?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi. I don't have a question. I really appreciate this. First of all, I filled my form. So I've got the form and I filled it. I finished my census because I was very keen.
Well done.
Secondly, you know, this was very good session because the couple of friends who generally have, you know, kind of a question why we have to go into such religious biases. And from the session, I realized it's not about religion specifically. It is about our Indianness and, you know, in totality, which community we belong to. So I think I've got really good things to speak because a lot of people have this, you know, kind of a thinking. Is it something to do with religion? Why we don't get it? You know, how different people have different questions. A very good session. And I wanted to actually thank you rather than asking a question. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And I think with that, we've come to the end of the session. We don't have any more questions. Rashmi, do you want to
that's completely
finish the session, wrap it up?
I would really thank Sanjay ji for giving his valuable time to us, and we will be definitely spreading word even more frantically, I would say, if the word is correct. Tomorrow I'll upload it on YouTube. We'll share the YouTube link, and this program is live on IIW page. Hopefully we get more views tomorrow because many people may not watch today, but maybe by night or tomorrow morning or by weekend, we get more viewers there. So thank you so much. And Hema, lovely host as usual. Thank you very, very much for being part of the show.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm really glad I got to meet somebody like Sanjay. So it was great.
I want to say thank you, Sanjay ji. It was a lovely session. Sanjay ji, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I am really knowing about it before it comes to Scotland, which is good. So I can spread the word.
So Rashmi, you will do this in Scotland next year as well. We'll do this Zoom call in Scotland.
Yeah, true. And you can start spreading the word now, Manjulika.
Yeah.
Sanjay, I have to invite you to Scotland.
Thank you all.
Sanjay, thank you very much. I've been to practically all the sessions of the census that you've had, and I found this one even more informative compared to the rest of it because you've put it into more explanation.
And I tell you that I said that at the beginning, that this is the first Zoom call I had where the organization had their name Indian, and it makes you that much more passionate. It's automatic that you can, whatever I'm saying to another community, it's exactly the same presentation, but it doesn't have the same connotation. And that's when you're speaking to people who are proud Indians, who are proud to be British, and it makes my life and my presentation all of a sudden come to light. You know, it comes to life. And so thank you for that, this opportunity. I should be really thanking you.
And you need a host like me to ask all the right questions.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. There's a message from Sachin. Thank you, Sachin, for coming.
I was going to read that out. Yeah.
Yeah, read that
well
out.
Done, Sachin. Yeah, well done, Sachin. Sachin's written, thank you all. I was able to submit census survey while on call. Sachin, did you put on Indian? Did you write Indian there? Did you put in Indian in the other column when you did your census? I hope you did. Can you hear me? Yes, we can.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, you are.
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So yes, I wanted to say thanks. I mean, even though, I was busy on something else, but while the discussion was on, I got this letter 2 days back, and there was a buzz going on in my other group, friend circle. They're also talking about, there's a census coming up and this is how you should fill in. So I was like, I was waiting for this to work, but when I opened it here, it was like, I think it takes good 20-30 minutes because I have we have family of 4. So it asks for each and every person's detail. But while we were talking, I was able to fulfill it, the details, and I think I would have missed 1 or 2 sections which I got clarified from this meeting particularly. So I really thank you everyone, especially Sanjay ji, for guiding us through. And I'm sure, we all pay taxes and we are citizens, so we should get the benefit for sure. I mean, it's a 10-year cycle.
Absolutely. No, you're right.
2021. So we should be definitely utilizing our resources.
And I think most Indians, it would be fair to say, probably fall under the higher taxpayer bracket, actually.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So we are literally doing charity, aren't we, without getting anything in return. So no, well done, Sachin. And I hope that you actually wrote the word Indian in the other column, because that would actually make this session profitable.
I made sure I wrote Indian. I also my language as Hindi. My son is his main language is English, but and he's also a USA citizen, so I mentioned that as well. But I made sure wherever there's a section for national identity, I mentioned my national identity. I'm a Hindu, even though I'm Punjabi first, but I mentioned Hindi as my first language. So that way I know. I mean, we have to. I mean, as Sanjay ji said, I mean, I'm really taken aback by the kind of anti-India sentiments which are happening, and I don't want it to happen again. So we need to stand up all together to counter that.
Well said. Yeah, well said. Now, all you can do is just spread the word then, Sachin, so that'll be helpful. Before we close the call, I had a quick question, Sanjay. Is it possible to maybe give 1 or 2 screenshots of your PowerPoint slide where I think there was this one particular slide where you had the 4 different sections with the religion, ethnicity, so British, Indian. If you could just send that, maybe we could all start forwarding that in our groups to say, make sure you've got these bits in your census, British and Indian, and then whatever else that they need to fill out, whatever language.
I'll do that. I'll do that straight away.
I think that'll send out a powerful message rather than watching 3-minute videos or this 75-minute conference call. Just that should be enough.
I'll do that, certainly. Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Let's end from here on.
Yes.
Have a great evening.
Have a good evening, everyone. Yes.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks a lot for joining. Bye.